Hello, and welcome back to the Recruitment Coach podcast with me, Martin Hodgkinson. Today, we're going to be talking about why your recruiters are inconsistent. If you're leading a recruitment agency of 5 to 50 people, you already know this truth all too well. Performance across your team can be wildly inconsistent. One consultant can bill £40,000 a month like clockwork, while the others struggle to bill £10,000 a month. Yet they're using the same CRM, the same job flow, and maybe even sitting next to each other. It's really frustrating, right? It's creating cash flow uncertainty, and it's making forecasting a nightmare. And worst of all, it's holding your business back from scaling. But here's the thing, it's not just about the individuals, it's about the environment that we're putting them in and how well we're preparing them to succeed. So if you found yourself thinking at any point, why isn't this person getting it? Maybe I just need to hire better people. Maybe you're even thinking, is it time to just let them go? Then I think you really need to listen to this episode, because the real issue often isn't the person, it's the lack of a clear, effective learning and development strategy. In my experience, the agencies that break through this barrier have one thing in common. They treat learning and development like a strategic growth driver, not just a box ticking exercise. A strong L&D strategy doesn't just improve product knowledge or script delivery, it helps consultants adapt their skills to what today's clients and candidates actually need and adjust to the market to enable a consistent pipeline. It helps them build resilience so they don't spiral when a month goes south and end up with 0 months scattered through the year. And it helps protect their well-being so that it can sustain high performance without burning out and undoing all the hard work, which is a really, really common thing that I've seen. And the ripple effects of doing all these things are huge. So the consultants are feeling more confident, they're performing better, they're billing more, and they're staying longer because they can actually see a future with you. And you, as the leader, you're finally getting the consistency and the scalability that you've been dreaming of. But let me be clear, right? This doesn't mean just going out and getting an LMS and using the stock content that's on there, or quickly creating some content to put it out there, or hiring a full-time trainer just overnight, because that won't solve the problem. And this is where a lot of this problem is coming from, is people just think, oh well, we need a trainer, so we'll get a trainer in and that'll solve everything, and then nothing changes, because it won't change. That's not solving the problem, that's just putting a plaster over a broken arm, right? It's not doing anything. You need to fix the broken arm. You can't just put a little bit of money into it and get an LMS and pay for some training, or hire an internal trainer and just tell them to get on with it. You need to create a deliberate, structured approach to developing your people, one that grows with them and grows with your business. So how do we do that? So firstly, you need to treat L&D as a commercial strategy. It's not just about making people better, it's about creating high performing teams that are actually driving your bottom line. You need to focus on resilience and well-being, not just skills. So if your consultants are overwhelmed or burning out, no amount of training will actually stick. You need to support the whole person, not just the recruiter. Quite often with L&D, people think it's all about the skills for the job, and they focus on how to make a phone call or how to prospect, how to write a CV. They don't actually focus on the emotional and the mental side of a recruiter. There's nothing in place to help them when they're struggling. They just put more pressure on. So how can we use the L&D strategy to focus on their resilience, and their mental health and their emotional health. What can we implement there? And then lastly, we can build pathways, not just patchworks. So we want to think long term here with the L&D strategy. Yes, you want some short term things in there, but your goal is long term. What does development look like at each stage of somebody's journey? So what's development like for a rookie recruiter who's just come into your business? How does that then progress so that a year down the line, when they're in, they understand what they're doing, they're hopefully doing okay. How do we then develop them there for the next stage of their career? How do we develop those people that are sort of the middle tier, that are billing really well, they're really profitable, but they're just not quite reaching the heights of the top billers? How can we develop them? Those top billers, how are we developing them to be even better? Or maybe do they want to go into management? How are we developing that? And then coming on to management, how are we developing our management team? Because we don't want to forget about them because they are the driving force of the agency. They're the ones that are having a direct impact on your recruiters. So how are we developing them? So our L&D strategy should be focusing on things like how to build a pipeline, how to change your tactics for this current market, but then also having one eye on the next market, spotting the trends that are happening and where we can see the market going, and giving them the skills to adjust what they're doing with how the market's actually going. Because we did see that, as I mentioned, we saw that happen when the market flipped. We had a lot of people who were doing BD who really struggled and are still struggling today because they haven't been set up with the skills to adapt to a candidate-led market. They've had a client-led market. They've had the candidate market. So they've been able to get a CV, throw it out to everybody. Somebody will come back interested because there's plenty of jobs out there and nice and easy. But now there's not as many jobs out there. It's not so easy. Clients are being far more picky with who they work with, and they're taking more of that relational approach. So the people that put in the extra effort are now surviving and thriving, whereas everybody else is scratching around trying to get the scraps of whatever's left. And that's really not helping that inconsistent billing. It's not helping fill that pipeline up. So we need to give them those skills of how to adapt to the market and the next market that's coming. So right now, we should be focusing on how they actually make a difference to clients. How can they have more of a personal approach? Because AI, as big as it is and as good as it is, can't do everything. And too many recruiters are relying far too heavily on AI. And from the companies that I've been speaking to, they are far more preferring the face-to-face approach or the human touch. So the recruiters that actually have the skills to do that are thriving and bringing in loads of jobs and getting lots of new clients, whereas those relying on AI heavily are really struggling. So we should be teaching them how to use AI, but to make their face-to-face approach or their human touch approach far more effective, but also keeping an eye out on what's happening next. With the resilience side of things, the going is tough. So what are we doing to help them stay positive and move forward and keep going? Because being rejected day in, day out is very hard. Like even somebody with really thick skin like myself, I didn't bother me at first, but eventually it was wearing me down. Thankfully, I managed to get through it. But that's just because of who I am and the personality I have. Not everyone has that. I've seen really good recruiters who have got so much potential struggle with that constant rejection and end up leaving the industry because they didn't have the skill set to deal with it. And for some reason, a lot of agencies class that as that person just couldn't do it. They didn't get it. They recruitment wasn't for them. That's not good enough. Recruitment needs good people. So we need to do what we can to keep them. So if we can keep these good recruiters in by having an L&D strategy that is focused on their resilience and their mental health, giving them those coping mechanisms so that when the going does get tough, they know how to deal with it and move forward positively and have a great impact on the industry. And then, like I said, it's a long-term plan, L&D. It's not all about the short term. So I've had another episode where I've talked about potential leaders and who we should actually be putting into those roles. So go check that one out. But yeah, what does that pathway look like for them? Whoever they are, where do they want to end up, and how are we going to get them there? We should be having constant conversations with these people and working out where they fit in the agency in the future and where they want to be in that agency in the future. Do they just want to be a biller and just bill lots of money? Great. If they do, we love that. Let's help them get there. But do they want to become a team leader, maybe a divisional leader? How can we help them get there? What skills do we need to work on? So we need to have pathways which are clear and focused on set routes through the agency and through careers. Not just do a bit of ad hoc. Like, oh, you want to do some team leader? Let's do a bit of this. Or you want to be a big biller? Let's kind of do that. Let's see what we're going. Actually have clear pathways so that you know where to take this person's training and development and they know where they're going to go so that they can do some work themselves as well. Because it's the responsibility of the recruiter to do the work. We just have to guide them and show them the path. So create those pathways so that they can take that journey and get there. That's where the LMS systems can come in and the internal trainers can come in because you've got those pathways. You can create the pathways on LMS systems, create the content that's needed, or pay somebody else to do it, and they can get on with their journey and you can support them through it. Or you can have the internal trainer who does it all for you. They follow the pathway that's set out and you just have regular meetings to update everything. Maybe you do both. Maybe you have an internal trainer and an LMS system and really fast track the success. So before you start thinking that it's the recruiter's fault or they just haven't got it, they didn't get recruitment, it's not for them, or you just think, well, we'll get a trainer in, that'll solve everything, or we'll get an LMS system, that'll solve everything. Take a step back and have a real honest look at your L&D strategy. Is it setting the recruiters up to be successful? And if not, what needs to change? So that's it for today's episode. So hopefully there's some really good takeaways there that you can implement to start getting your recruiters billing consistently. And if you'd like to follow some more of my content, I've got a few more episodes out there on Spotify. I've got a YouTube channel. I've also got a LinkedIn and TikTok as well. If you're on TikTok, at Recruitment Coach Martin, or just drop me a message and let's talk about how we can work together to get your agency growing through L&D.